Let's get into what we're talking about here today, which is the passing of Rush Limbaugh. Rush Limbaugh died last week, and It was interesting because I was on a walk with my mom, who's, very, very sweet lady, and I was just like, oh, Rush Limbaugh died, and she's like, oh, that's good. Just very and so this whole week has just been it's the much stupider version of the conversation that happened when Osama bin Laden died, basically, where it's like, is it okay to celebrate someone's death? And it's like, you don't get brownie points for nice behavior. At the end of the day, go ahead and do whatever you want, is my thought on it. But Jim posted a story on Facebook that lit up every light bulb in my pinball machine, which is about the time that you worked on a particular TV show that I am kind of obsessed with, and it's also a story that involves Rush Limbaugh. So, Jim, if you would, tell the listeners about this experience that you had dealing with the man himself, the late L. Rushbo.
The Rush Limbaugh incident. It's not it's not an incident so much as it's an experience.
An encounter.
An encounter. It was, I moved to Los Angeles in 2006, and I'd been here about 6 months, and it was like January of 2007. I actually got I got a call about doing some PA work, just, the guy who runs and gets donuts, picks up props, does all those things. I was like my third job in Los Angeles, and it was like, yeah, I need to pay the rent. So I get called to work on this pilot for a Daily Show type project. And I was like, that's cool. I like the Daily Show. And like, sometimes you get vague information. Sometimes They won't tell you exactly the show you're working on. Sometimes it was also, the internet's not exactly what it was. So you don't just get to kind of go like, oh, it's a thing for NBC and it starts filming in January, or it's in a thing for ABC and it's a pilot project. You can do your own internet sleuthing. This ended up being for the half-hour news hour.
Yes.
It was Fox's attempt at the Daily Show.
No, we should clarify. Not Fox. Fox News.
Sorry, Fox News. Yeah, it was made by Fox for Fox News.
Fox has done things that are funny. Fox News, no.
Yeah. So Fox. Yeah, I guess that's very, very. That delineation is important. So it was a couple of days worth of work. And one of the things was I got sent to pick up, go to the warehouse for the show 24 and pick up their version of the Resolute desk and a backdrop of the Oval Office back, like the windows and everything. And I was to bring it down because we were going to be filming a sketch. I was like, cool, that's great. Getting that desk in the back of a moving van is not fun. Like, it's like, it was not designed to get put on the back. It was, I think we may have damaged it a bit. Dude, I don't know.
It's so crazy you mentioned that it's the shit from 24 because the show was created by the guy who created 24.
Yeah. Oh, he was on set. I don't think I really interacted with him, but yeah, he was a producer. And I think it was one of those things where it's like, you get some Hollywood clout and you're like, hey, I'd like to, he has the money. That was a very popular show, very successful. So he got to make the conservative Daily Show. But it was, what happened was we brought all those things to this soundstage and we're gonna film this sketch. And it was like, it's about what if Rush Limbaugh was the president of the United States, and what if Ann Coulter was the vice president. And I sat there going like, there's that's a premise.
Yeah,
like that fits the rules of a premise. Yeah, what could you do with that?
Right. If somebody with a good deal of talent, wrote that sketch, I could see myself laughing at such a thing.
Yeah, it's like, well, what's the angle? Like with any sketch, what's the angle? Yeah, right. You could do that. But I actually had the thought to myself of like, oh, I wonder who they're going to get to play Rush Limbaugh and Ann Coulter. And well, I was very quickly corrected. They didn't get anyone to play Rush Limbaugh and Ann Coulter. They got Rush Limbaugh and Ann Coulter.
Good evening, my fellow Americans.
Making dittos?
Thank you. We have just completed the first 100 days of our administration executing the office flawlessly. Zero mistakes. Well, let's take a look at our report card so far. I have it right here. What do you know? Straight A's. We've excelled in every conceivable area. Employment, 100%. Inflation, 0.
And tell them about that foreign stuff.
Oh, yeah. Peace between the Israelis and Palestinians. Bin Laden, dead. Al-Qaeda, rolled up. North Korea, no more nukes.
And?
Oh, yeah, right. The one they said couldn't be done, Britney Spears is wearing panties again.
America thanks you, sir.
Well, thank you. It wasn't easy. Anyway, now that America's back on track, I will be taking a much-deserved vacation. In my absence, Vice President Calder here will be the leader of the free world. I'll see you in about a month, Madam Vice President. Our little Dr. Democracy will be out there on the golf course. If you need anything, call Secretary of State Drudge. He'll handle whatever you need.
Cool. Hello, Pentagon. This is Acting President Coulter. Are there any countries we haven't invaded yet? Canada.
So we're on set. It's January. They're filming this sketch and they love it. They think everything is so funny about it. And I've never heard something less funny. Like there's no jokes. There's not even a rhythm of comedy. Like it's that idea of like, it just feels like a weird recitation of cruel headlines.
Yeah.
Like all of it from wall to wall.
This is from Pop Matters. It says, the pilot episode featured a sketch with Rush Limbaugh as the president and Ann Coulter as the vice president. At one point, the commander-in-chief asked the VP if she would like to join him in a cigar. And then, quote, isn't the White House a smoke-free zone? Coulter asks. Not anymore, Rush Limbaugh replies with his trademark smugness. Cue the laugh track. So that's kind of
the laugh track was horrible.
And what's funny about that is where it's like, you know, I guess that's supposed to be like, you can't smoke in restaurants anymore. Like it's, you know, an affront to personal liberty. But like they missed like the most obvious joke they could have gone for, which is that Bill Clinton fucked a girl with a cigar. You know what I mean?
Well, yeah. And it was that was like the end. Like that was the end of the sketch. Like there's no heightening in that sketch at all. That was like, it was the most level sketch. It was like, let's set this at 1 and keep it there the entire time. Because all the stuff he talks about in it are like every one of his talking points.
Right.
It's basically like, oh, this has come to pass because, but there's no punchline to it. There's no twist. There's no turn. There's no like,
right.
Oh, wow. I never thought of it that way.
Yeah.
The thing that the one part that really bugged me was there's like a whole, so like Cindy Sheehan was, her son was killed in combat in Iraq. Yeah. She was very anti-war, anti-violence. She went and protested. She like lived in a ditch in a tent near George Bush's ranch in Texas.
Yeah.
And his quote unquote joke in the sketch was, and now that Cindy Sheehan's cross-country shooting spree has come to are still present in our minds, you go, dude, that lady, her son was taken with violence. Like all you're trying to do is slander her as crazy when she's and like, oh, a crazy gun nut. You're like, whoa. You look back on the last 20 years, how much gun violence and stuff is happening. It's not from the super anti-war people. Like you're just trying to label people as crazy. And I felt like that was like, if you're going to make a joke, all you're trying to do is just like paint contempt on a person and like be like, haha, I'm allowed to think they're crazy.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know, man.
Well, and I hate that I can even make my brain go here, but I'm like, if my job was to write a conservative show and you were trying to make fun of, you know, maybe not her specifically because her story is so, but then again, people writing on this show hypothetically wouldn't give a shit because they're fucking heartless monsters. But if you're trying to like, you know, paint some like left-wing kook as being crazy, it's so strange that they went with like a cross-country shooting spree when it's like, no, the whole reason you are making fun of these people is because they're protests are ineffective. That's like how you know it's like so,
the joke
like
the joke isn't there to you went the exact wrong way in an attempt at a joke and it still failed. And it was
so I have a very specific memory of sitting there watching TV and seeing a commercial for this show and just being like, oh my God, like they're going to try it. And it was almost like watching a Jackass stunt or something. You're just like, you know how it is going to end, but you kind of can't wait to see it a little bit.
You know what I kind of equated it to? It's like in high school, they have a talent show and some of the like music kids, the theater kids, they form a band or they have a band and they're really good and they play. But then in response, the jocks are like, we could be a rock band too. And you're like, no, you're not talented to do it. Like, and they just get up there and they play through the chords of Nothing Else Matters or something.
Yeah.
And then they do a terrible job and they're like, we did it. And you're like, no. You're not 2 steps away from a Grammy, you weirdos.
That's so funny you mentioned that. My freshman year, I went to a small liberal arts college outside of Birmingham called Montevallo, and they don't have they have like sports teams, but riding that line between minor league and intramural. So they don't really have like a big game every year, like a homecoming game. So instead, they do this thing called Purple and Gold Days, where basically they split up the campus. There's purple side and there's gold side. And it's essentially the purple side is like the drama theater kids, because it is like a small, ostensibly liberal arts college. So there are like a tremendous amount of that, those kind of people. And then there's like the, business major jocks, I guess, for lack of a better word. And they make them each do a play and then play a basketball game. And that's kind of their like homecoming tradition, I guess.
I like the idea that they like lean into the like, we'll do something you're strong at and we'll do something you're strong at. And then it's like,
yeah, but the problem is the jocks have more friends that show up to vote. So they usually end up sweeping anyway.
Oh, yeah.
So it's exactly what you're talking about. Just like, yeah, we'll do a stupid play. And then everybody, they end up winning, which is, frankly, make fun of Rush as much as you want. The dude died a millionaire with a Presidential Medal of Freedom. It's like, I think that's a perfect reason that it's cool to make fun of the guy, because he won. He fucking won.
Yeah. There's no punching down when it comes to Rush Limbaugh. Like,
no.
He had everything. How many divorces did it? Like, for every success that someone would want to put on someone's like headstone, like, hey, he did this, he did that. Like, it's that on the epitaph of a person. You could also go like, yeah, but he's also like multi-time divorced. He like had a huge Oxycontin addiction, which an addiction in and of itself, I'm not trying to put that down.
Yeah.
It's the idea he spent so much time judging and the vitriol he brought to other people
drug addicts
having drug issues.
Yeah.
And you get zero sympathy from me when you're that broken and that like your self-awareness doesn't exist to even go like, hey, maybe some level of empathy. I have a similar problem.
Yeah.
But he just felt like it's the idea of all he ever seemed to do was take people and things that he didn't like, even if it was for a similar reason to something he has.
Yep.
He's still like, no, I need more people to hate these people.
Yeah. And that ideology, goddamn if it didn't become the political climate that we all live in now.
Yeah.
Like,
I think
so the dude won. Like, so you can absolutely say rest in piss, fuck you, Rush Limbaugh, because we live in his head now.
Sure. He effectively changed the temperature in the room.
Yeah.
Like, it's no longer like, I think there's that weird thing of like, I remember my grandfather was a conservative guy, but he was never like aggressive about, I mean, he passed away long before everything kind of got to what it was. He's been gone since 2004. But he used to like, he would watch CNN because it was about the news. Like, It wasn't this thing where like merely because it's CNN, you need to hate everything they say and everything that's Fox News or Newsmax or OAN or whatever. You go like, it changed. It's now so... It's like my side versus your side.
Sure.
And you're like, ugh, it's just, there's something I always see on Facebook, which makes me laugh is, since I work in television, I'm looking for jobs and there's always postings for new like positions and things like that. One that keeps coming up is a producer position for Tucker Carlson's show.
Oh, Christ.
And it's like, it's funny because you just go, oh, they're posting that position again. Like it'll come up, someone will cross post or something like that. And I go, oh, they're still looking for that position. And then you just go like, every other thing on that post would be like three comments or something that's like, oh, you should apply to this and all this stuff. Theirs is always like 75 comments and none of them are like, They're like, hey man, it ranges from, hey, you keep posting this post, no one cares, all the way down to, gross. That this show is garbage, like that level of what Facebook is.
Right. Yeah, of course. That's so funny. It's almost like the high turnover rate Arby's where they just can't keep a fry-a-later guy. Where you're just like, obviously this job sucks. No one wants to do this.
Well, yeah. Well, and I also think there was interesting, just to tie it back to the half-hour news hour.
Yes.
I don't think the writers on the half-hour news hour were all conservative writers.
No,
I think a lot of them were writers who took the job.
Yeah, they got. I mean, not that Bill. I mean, you know, I think the argument can definitely be made that Bill Maher is a fucking conservative, and a lot of his views, probably the most toxic of his views, I would say he's an ultra fucking conservative. But one of his writers was writing on this show, like left Bill Maher to go write for this show, and you know, the creator of 24, while 24 does sort of glorify Bush era torture and all that shit, he's still a fucking rich Hollywood guy, you know. So if this is absolutely just an opportunity for a cash in. But you know, I don't know. But yeah, I want you to finish the story. What was Rush's, like, you know, kind of attitude on set, or how did he come off?
You know what, I don't know if this is a testament to him or whatever. He was exactly the same guy that was on radio. Like, it wasn't a thing where he turned it on or turned it off. He was kind of that blowhard, like, sort of like like, he wanted to go, like, he really was loving the lines he was getting to say. It was like that glorious lack of self-awareness where he was just sort of like, oh, this is so funny. And then he said it with no affect whatsoever. He just said it with his normal radio voice of like,
wow, tremendous.
Oh, yeah. With the re-election or with the election having happened and I'm the president, you go like, there's no performance to this other than he knows how to do radio.
Yeah, for sure.
And there was a lot of that. I mean, it happens on every set. I've been on sets where, hey, they do a take and they go like, that was kind of funny. And then everyone would huddle together and try to figure out a funnier line, or they'd be like, say it like this time and everything.
Let's do a fun one.
Yeah, it was a really weird thing where it's like, you know what it almost felt like? It felt like if you went to a gun range and someone fired off a bunch of rounds and didn't hit the target, but then like everyone else on the line gathered together and they got in a huddle, and then they came out and the guy's like, yeah, and he fires again and doesn't hit the target. Like, it's just like, what was that huddle for?
I have some stats for the half-hour news hour.
Awesome.
So it premiered February 18th, 2007. So we just passed the anniversary, and was canceled September 23rd, 2007. They produced 17 episodes total. And what's funny is they have a write-up on Wikipedia of all the episodes, but they stopped reviewing at 6. Like, whoever was sitting there writing out what premises they were doing was just like, I can't do the rest. So he just gave up.
I know, like, a Bill Maher show is like once a week, but like a daily show is like 4 times a week.
Right.
So you sit there and go like, I don't think they had the skill or they had the energy to, like, nothing involved. It's like, there's not enough comedy even in that pilot episode to go. I mean, when you think about it, the pilot was filmed in January. I guess it aired in February. So you're like, right. Comedy is not evergreen in that regard. Like, comedy, current event topics die within a week.
Right.
I mean, and look at the Donald Trump era; they were dead inside of 36 hours.
Exactly. Yeah. Oh, yeah. I don't know, and I want to talk about that too in a second. My last little stat, though, and this is incredible. The website Metacritic is an aggregate of all of the, critical responses to television shows. And currently Metacritic has 2,791 shows that you can read the aggregate score of. And the half-hour news hour is, and you can maybe put this on your resume, Jim, the half-hour news hour is 2,791 out of 2,791.
Oh, wow, that's amazing.
The lowest rated television program that Metacritic has on their website.
That feels like a Razzie sort of situation where you're like, I'll go and accept the award.
Oh, dude, I'd put that in my Twitter bio if I was you. I'd be like, I worked on the lowest rated show ever of all time.
I brought them bagels and I got that desk.
Yeah, I got Rush Limbaugh's desk.
I brought the strongest part of that entire sketch. That is a top-notch desk. One of the really funny things is I used to watch some of 24, like I think here and there. It was like one of those, like, remember back when you used to be like, oh, so what's on at 9:00?
Sure, yeah.
Like, and you would just watch so like one time I was watching 24 and there's a whole scene. I mean, this has probably happened a billion times, but Jack Bauer was like chasing someone down and they get in a firefight near a dumpster. And I'm looking at the alleyway they're in. I'm like, that's where I got that desk from. Like, that door over there is their warehouse door. Like, they clearly just were like, hey, let's just shoot it in the back and we'll just, it made me laugh because I was just like, wait a sec. Hold on. Why does that look familiar? I mean, that is a lot of what living in LA is.
Oh, sure.
So much stuff is filmed here. You're just like, why does that street look familiar? And then like you look it up, you're like, oh yeah, it was in Seven. It was in The Dark Knight Rises. Like all those. It's actually creepy because it feels like it's the opposite of like a place being new, because it is new to you, but it's kind of familiar. Like, you don't know how you know it.
I found this also. This is from a Vulture article from 2013 about the half-hour news hour, and it's the one element that we haven't really talked about here, which is, of course, Dennis Miller featured very heavily on the program. He had his own segment called "The Buck Starts Here." This is from the article. Miller runs down a list of grievances and calls on Americans to stop with all the multiculturalism because it's making us hard to know whom to kill next. All right, cool.
Wow.
Stranger still, Miller's laugh-free segments spit in the face of his mastery of making and telling jokes. Okay, well, that's debatable, Vulture. Though, when he does bother to make one, like when he describes a vote by Hillary Clinton as having so many twists and turns, it makes San Francisco's Lombard Street look like Paris's Champs-Élysées. And that drives home right to the problem of how this thing couldn't have worked, which is, the very nature of satire depends on people having a firm grasp on reality, I think,
It's like you got to know the rules before you can break the rules. You can't write your own rules and then break those rules.
Yes, exactly. And so I wrote this little thing here. This was just my thoughts on it. Liberals are the masters of satire, but they're also the only ones who find it funny. Stephen Colbert once said reality has a well-known liberal bias at the White House Correspondents' Dinner, and then the center ceased to hold. Things fell apart, and when the person that you're trying to make fun of rejects reality entirely or just embraces what they are, what do you have left to satirize? The right-wing reaction to satire was brutal shamelessness, and they won. It turns out you don't have to be smarter than Jon Stewart. You just have to make the ground that everyone stands on slippery. The emperor knows he's naked and is yelling at you for being a bitch about it. Or, as we've seen with them to completely taking the word cancel culture away from the left and misusing it, they'll say that you're body shaming the emperor. So that was my early morning thoughts on when I was going back and reviewing the half-hour news hour. I'm like, why doesn't this work? And it's like, because satire it might not even be an effective political project, but it's only effective if your grasp of what's going on is rooted in reality. I don't know. You have to understand so much kayfabe, so much constructed reality to kind of get a lot of the jokes even that are in the half-hour news hour. Like, you have to be a Rush Limbaugh listener to know that, like, okay, Rush Limbaugh believes in a thing called the nanny state. Okay, well, what is the nanny state?
Even like the ditto heads thing, like his whole like mega dittos. You go, what is that? And you have to realize, if you're a listener of his show, you'd understand that he calls people in the know that. I'm like, okay, I wouldn't know every nickname of a thing, but I always equated the show. My review of it is it's a show for your uncle who forwards you emails you never asked for.
Yeah,
like that's entirely what it is. And you also realize, like, maybe I just don't relate to it because there's a level of empathy, or there's a level of like, hey, the world's not just this like grievance. Like it's like everything is what they grieve about is just like they're like, I was just joking. It's like, no, you were complaining.
Yeah.
But a complaint can be a premise, but the joke has to be there. Like,
right.
You have to put a joke at the end of it.
Yeah.
Like, we all have to learn that lesson, and they did it with a nationally televised show.
Right. The last little thing I wanted to share with you here, and you may have seen this and may have not. This is from CNN. Florida's governor announced that he'll order flags in the state flown at half staff to honor the late conservative radio host Rush Limbaugh, who he called an absolute legend and a great person. So they're they're lowering the flags in Florida for this guy. This is a quote from Ron DeSantis. Quote, "Once the date of internment for Rush is announced, we're going to be lowering the flags to half staff." The governor said that the honor is what we do when there's things of this magnitude. And
that's really weird.
Yeah. Oh, well, it's weird to a point, but I think I know this is the next little sentence is kind of what I was getting at a little bit. The move doesn't seem to fit the state's flag protocol, which calls for flags to be flown at half staff in the event of a death of a present or former official of the state of Florida, or the death of a member of the armed forces from Florida who dies while serving on active duty. And that's not anybody's quote. That is just in the CNN article. And my thing is, like, pointing this out does what? Like, you sound like a fucking hall monitor. You know what I mean? Like, tell the truth. The truth is that Ron DeSantis did this to piss off liberals and to raise money from conservatives. Like, if you think that he's not shooting out an email blast to every person on his list and being like, pour one out for the dead homie Rush, give me $5, we're lowering the flags to half staff. Look how pissed off it made all of these fucking liberals, you know?
Yeah. But I think there's so many political moves these days are really out of securing your base.
Yeah.
And then you just realize, like, hey, I don't think that does, like, how many conservatives go like, hey, we really want bipartisanship. It's like, well, every action you're taking is the opposite of that.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Well, and, you know, and not to let the other, you know, fucking side off the hook at all. It's this exact same goddamn thing when Nancy Pelosi ripped up that speech behind Donald Trump. It cost her nothing. It riles up the base and it pisses off chuds, and she can raise money off of it. It's the same meaningless, like, it's a way to avoid doing anything for normal people, is just have this big stupid fight about some meaningless shit. Like, who cares if he's lowering the flags? Like, you can totally see, you know, if the shoe was on the other foot, you know, and some liberal hero died in California and they lowered the flag for him, and it's going to piss a lot of people off and it'll raise some money.
Yeah, of course. And the sad thing is, this state of how things are, it's been an ever evolving thing where it's become way more partisan, like over the last 15, 20 years. It's just going to continue. You're like, it's not like this is where it's going to stay. Like, it's going to be Rush Limbaugh this time. There's going to be a back and forth forever. And then, like, we're all going to be like Batman in that nightmare sequence in Batman versus Superman, where you're just sort of like, wow, how did things get to here? We're all in a Mad Max sort of desert world.
Oh, was the whole movie not a nightmare sequence?
Oh, well, yeah. The part of the movie that they've
I know what you mean,
phrased as nightmare.
Yeah. God.
Which we can expect more of in the Justice League.